Weekends on KMOX, we tell family business stories, and this one is another great American dream come to life with hard work, grit, and determination. Strait Realty, Christina Strait and Bob Strait join us in studio with Dan Bean from CMA Consulting, who presents this program, The Business of Family Business. I'm your host, Ryan Recker. Christina, how did Strait Realty start?
Strait Realty started pretty much out of necessity. I needed to have a career, and I have always been drawn to homes and houses and an exchange of houses. And when I was in college, I went to Missouri Baptist College, now university, came from a rural background. And when I came into college, I saw all these amazing homes around the college, and I wondered, who were they? What do they do? How can they afford a house like that? And wow, that just fascinated me. And then fast forward to, I just had our first child, Anna, and I wanted to know more about that. So I became an agent, and then 6 months later, got my broker's license, and Bob and I started flipping homes, and then we got into the market of selling property for a cheaper rate or a more discounted rate.
Yeah, and the whole process we'll talk about today, too, and your husband Bob in studio, which is interesting. When did you guys get married?
We got married in September of 1998.
You guys looked at each other like, oh, are you going to forget?
No, that's funny because I am such a macro person. I'm not micro at all. And when we were getting married, by myself, I went out and did the wedding announcements. And
can I say the line?
Yeah,
she shows me the invitations and she goes, "What do you think?" I said, "They're great, but the date's wrong." So
we were so poor, and I cried so much because I'd spent at the time I felt it was so much money on those announcements, and man, it devastated me. And so what I had to do, I had to go to Office Max and get this little stickies and say type correction. Our real date of September 12th, 1998.
So we always laugh about the date.
Yeah.
That's our inside joke.
So you almost have your own, you have the real date, and then you have this is the date we put on the invitation date.
Oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing having to send those out to all of our friends and family. But they knew me, so they laughed and they kind of figured it out.
So you set the invitations with the sticky notes on them.
Yes, I did. Any wedding planners out there are probably cringing, but that's what I did.
Did you have your training in realty at that point?
I did not. Yeah. No, we were married for can't remember
3 or 4 years.
Well, I would say like 5. By the time I got my license,
that's true.
5 years.
And Bob, what were you doing at that time?
I was in a jack of all trades in sales. I did mortgages for a while, and then I did remodeling, selling windows. I hated my life. I hated that type of sales, pressure sales. So when we decided to start flipping houses, we called a lot of agents, and none of them would call us back. So Christina's like, how hard can it be to become an agent and broker?
Well, I was naive at that point. It is actually very difficult now. But before,
Well,
young.
Did you guys at first see this as an opportunity to work together, or did it just organically happen that way?
It organically happened that way. Yeah. Well, I should say maybe both. We always knew together we were a huge force to contend with. And then it just has kind of evolved into kind of a fluid motion of work for both of us. And it really works well with our lifestyle and our kids and our family.
But it's still hard, though, to figure out with 2 A personalities who takes what role and, the common man role that he's the leader of certain things. Them roles are changing nowadays. It's changing in our house. Christina's the boss when it comes to Strait Realty. She's pretty much the boss at home, too. But what I'm saying is that, you have to put aside your pride a little bit for the betterment of the family. And like she said, the team approach, when we're together, it's incredible.
Dan Bean from CMA Consulting, maybe I can ask you about this because there's a lot of different roles that are brought on in a family business. You have the business roles, the family roles, the sibling roles, there's so many different roles that go into different family businesses.
Yeah, there are 3 classic roles. There's the business role, the family role, and the ownership role. And those are the 3 arenas that go on in a family business. And it's really important to know what hat you're wearing, what role you're speaking from, and that the other person is also in that same hat, same role. because if you talk from different roles, there's a lot of miscommunication that happens, and people have an impact on others that they don't realize they're having when they're wearing these different hats. And so this is the source of a lot of conflict and tension in a family business.
So, Christina, you mentioned with Strait Realty at the start, you had you got your license, and then you had to get a broker license, which was different.
Yes.
Was that the intention?
Yes, originally it was the intention to get a broker's license because that's the only way that I could start my own company in the state of Missouri is to be brokered if I wanted to work in real estate. And I figured I would never really be doing residential real estate to the masses at the time. I thought we would always flip homes and do our side thing. And then it turned into what it is now, and we're continuing to grow. So, yes, that was the intention to become a broker.
Yeah. You're going to hate me for saying this, but was this like a Property Brothers relationship? So you got one would do the working on the construction and the other would work on selling the house and, the realty side of it?
Well, if there was anybody that was handy in our house, maybe so, but no, no, we knew that we had to burn and turn for profitability. And if we were working on it, we would hold on to a home for a year or more if we were doing it. So we subcontracted everything out to flip it quicker. So
what's St. Louis as a market for that sort of thing? Well, maybe we should probably look at it, what it was like then compared to what it's like now. So when you first started doing that, what was St. Louis like as a market?
Well, the landscape is vastly different from 2003, 4, 5 to now. I mean, you had a lot of homes that were ready to flip. Now the inventory is so low in St. Louis that the properties that are even considered lower level or in need repair, they're going for top of their market because the inventory is so low. So it is a lot different. Investors have a hard time finding those gems, if you will, to flip homes because it's all about margin, and you have to find that one seller that will sell it to you for a low enough margin to where you can put money into it, make a profit. You're finding that less and less now.
We continue the story with Christina and Bob Strait from Strait Realty. You can look them up online. Also, Dan Bean from CMA Consulting, who presents this program, The Business of Family Business. I'm your host, Ryan Recker. And as you know, 2/3 of family businesses do not make the generational transition. Many determining factors there. Sometimes it's planned, other times it's not. So what are you doing if you're thinking about that next generation and you don't know where to go from there? Are they ready to be effective business owners? This is where CMA Consulting can help. You can look them up online, CMAconsult.com, or give them a call at 314-721-1860. They will help unify, develop, and align and help that next generation be in a place where they can be those effective business owners with experts that provide all kinds of different help from all across the board. CMA Consulting, CMAconsult.com. Again, the website every business owner should know, CMAconsult.com. And their phone number is 314-721-1860. In many ways, this is the American dream, owning your own business. Welcome to the Business of Family Business. I'm your host, Ryan Recker, in studio with Christina and Bob Strait. Also, Dan Bean from CMA Consulting, telling the story of Strait Realty. And this episode and many others can be found online if you go to KMOX.com. Just go to the podcast section. And Bob, I'm curious about this too over the years. What were some of the biggest challenges in those early years when you first started working together?
Just figuring out our role. We started working together. I got my license in 05, 06, and then the recession hit. So, there's two of us feeding out of the same trough, so to speak. So I had to find other ways to make ends meet because, we lost 2/3 of our income during that time. And so that was tough. And, you had to downsize like everybody did at the time. And then we started building after the recession. We really started building the business together.
And you guys came up with a different way of doing things, too. And I think people have heard the catchphrase, why pay more than four? It's a very popular one. We hear it in advertising here on KMOX even. So how did that all come about? And why did you decide to take that direction?
Well, interestingly, in 2015, my girls, I have 2 daughters, they were a little bit older. I could leave them at home. They were the age where it was appropriate, so I can work a little bit more. And I'm really good friends with a gentleman who is a powerhouse in St. Louis, and he does a lot of advertising. And I asked him, we took vacations together, the couples, we took vacations and in Chicago, and he said, I told him, I said, I want to grow my business. And he said, I'll tell you how to do it. You need to advertise, and you have a good thing, but nobody knows who you are, and you're competing against the big boys, and you have to get out there. And I said, okay. And it was risky for us because he said, all the money that you just saved frugally on 2014, 2015, I'm going to ask you to dump into advertising. And for us, that was a huge step because that was our livelihood. That was everything. And I remember walking into KMOX and talking to our ad person and saying, you don't understand. This is like all we have. We have nothing. If this sinks, then we sink. Like it will not work. And he said at the time, it was a gentleman, and he said, it'll work. I know it'll work. It's catchy. And
he said you won't get a call for 1 month, though. Remember that?
So we came in the middle of February 2015, and he said, now, you're a no-name, and so I'm in the advertising business, and I am pretty sure I have to tell you that you're probably not going to get your phone to ring for another, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even a month. People have to recognize your name. And we said, okay, wow, man, we're still kind of struggling with it. And the first time our advertisement went on the air was March 1st. And the girls, our 2 daughters, and my husband and I, it was a 7:25 in the morning on KMOX on the drive.
Around the radio.
Drive in the morning in the kitchen. We were standing around the radio, and we heard it, and we all jumped up and down, and we were all giggling, and it was just so cool. And they were like, oh my gosh, Mom's on the radio. And that day, I received 3 phone calls from people asking me to come out and list their property. Not I don't understand the process. How does it work? And they all said, when can you come out and when can you list my house? So in that moment, we were like, okay, we got a thing here.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. So you were at this time, you're thinking like, okay, you have a lot of trust in the advice you were given to go and put this into sort of advertising. And ever since then, you follow through on it. You did it, and no looking back, and boy, it's really worked out for you guys, because I think it's almost like a phrase that most people in town know. It's a very catchy phrase. Yeah,
well, it's not just the phrase. The phrase itself, yes.
Yeah.
It is very catchy, and people do remember it, and they'll tell strangers. We've had people call us and say, hey, some guy in the grocery store line gave me your line because they heard me talking about selling my house. But it's not just that. It's the 4%, that will get the phone to ring, but you have to have quality behind that name and behind that slogan. And that's what we have really been trying to make the best. It's not good enough just to be 4%. You got to be the best at everything, from contact to contract and closing. And that's what we try to do.
Dan Bean from CMA Consulting. I like this aspect of it. It's a highly competitive field. When there's a certain disruption that goes on and you start to see it catch on pretty quickly, what does that mean for the industry in general when you have someone like Strait Realty come in and they try something new and it works?
So there's kind of 2 levels of disruption that happen in an industry. One level of disruption is the rules change. And so that is a smaller magnitude. The larger magnitude disruption is when the game itself changes. So we can change the rules in the game, but we all recognize it's the same game. The bigger disruption, usually driven by technology advancement or a regulatory change or a new delivery model, that disrupts the whole industry, and we got a whole new game now. And what they have here is a price disruption, but at the same time, they're providing the same quality and extent of service that everybody else does, so it gives them a competitive edge.
So after that moment at Strait Realty, what happened to your business? Did it exponentially grow?
Yes.
Great.
And in fact, approximately 3 weeks after that moment, I looked at Bob and said, we've got to get other agents. I cannot do this.
Wow.
I can't. I have too much to do. So then I hired people in the back end. Then I hired agents, and I had my husband come on full time, and we're rocking and rolling.
That first year before we started advertising on the radio, we did $3 million in business.
No, we did $26 million
No,
in business.
before the radio ads.
Oh, no, 12. We did 12. We doubled.
And then after that, it's been growing at a 20% clip, where last year we did
Last year, we did almost $60 million in business. Yeah.
And are you primarily St. Louis region?
St. Louis region and counties. So St. Charles County,
Franklin
Jefferson County, Warren County.
So it's just in Missouri, I guess. Is there different licensing for Illinois?
Oh, yeah. Illinois, as we know, is it's difficult to do anything in Illinois. They require a higher wall to scale, if you will, to get over there.
So we have to go through Nebraska and get a license there in order to have
for Illinois.
Yeah, because they only have reciprocity with so many states, and Nebraska is one of them. But you have to be licensed in Nebraska for 2 years. It's a whole thing. It's
so
very
weird.
Frustrating.
I guess I can see that being very frustrating. You said right now the way that the housing market is in St. Louis, there's not a lot of inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that for a while, or is there certain like ebbs and flows, and certain seasons it's better than others?
Seasons in terms of the year, generally, yes. Generally, there is an ebb and flow in the year.
Mm-hmm.
However, last year and this year, there has been a shortage of inventory.
Mm-hmm.
I will say in 2016, it was a very odd year. We had a booming start of the year, but then in the summer, because it was an election year, things were uncertain. And so therefore, we had a shortage of inventory with buyers and sellers. The properties that were on the market stayed on the market for a long time, all the way up until really the election. And the day after the election, things started flying. It was really kind of cool to watch.
Don't go anywhere. More of the business of family business coming up next. It's presented by CMA Consulting. Look them up online at cmaconsult.com. We love family business stories on this program, The Business of Family Business. It's presented by CMA Consulting. And if you have a family business, or you participate, or you patronize a family business, or maybe you have a neighbor that runs a family business, tell them about this program and let them know we're always looking for new businesses to highlight on this program. Just reach out to Dan Bean. The website, cmaconsult.com. Bob and Christina Strait from Strait Realty. We continue our conversation with them on this weekend's edition of The Business of Family Business. You know, and I wonder, too, because you mentioned before you were did some flipping in the early years. Is that pretty much impossible to do now with the inventory low?
yes.
Yeah. So you probably don't have the time to do that, I'm guessing.
Well, we did one last year.
Did you?
With our friends that were actually the ones that help us, with the radio ads.
Yeah.
We did one. The four of us did it together. Everybody had their roles, and we really enjoyed it.
Well,
Yeah.
you did this yourself as like a project.
Yeah, like a side thing. It's fun. I mean, you walk into a home, and I have to stop doing this, but I walk into the home and I think of how I would remodel it, what wall I would tear down, where I would reposition the stairs and reconfigure the kitchen, just because I love it.
So you did the manual labor of rebuilding and remodeling a home for fun.
Well, we didn't manually do it.
Okay.
We never, ever. We always subcontract it.
We got to demo it. That was
Yeah,
fun.
demo was they talk about a stress reliever.
Sledgehammers and everything.
Absolutely,
you go in?
absolutely.
Exactly.
And our kids get involved with that too. So
How old are your kids now?
my oldest is 18 and my youngest is 16.
Any of them have interest in Strait Realty?
Well, the 18-year-old just got accepted to go for classics major, so we're pretty proud of that. And then the 16-year-old, she's the entrepreneur. She's as a little kid, she would sell art to the family, and she's eBayed products that I had, and she has quite a lot more money than I had at that age. She's, it's fascinating to watch her. She's had an eBay business for the last year.
Wow.
So
she understands that side of it.
Yeah, she does, and I think she'll be the one who wants to get her license probably whenever she turns 18.
Wow.
And my oldest too. She's not as aggressive as my younger, but she definitely has the business mind. It comes up, it rears its ugly head every once in a while. She tries to be the typical teenager, but then if one of her friends will say something and she's like, no, that's not right. Interest rates, da 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 da, and she'll just spout off something and it's true.
Now remember, they've been in homes their whole entire life, so. They're comfortable with talking. I think they're more comfortable talking to older adults than they are their own peers
I would
sometimes.
agree, probably.
But, they've been in incredible homes, their whole childhood. We would take them with us.
So do they, when they go and visit a friend's house, look at the roof, like, oh, look at this? Do they notice things like that at people's homes?
It's funny you ask that because, yes, they do. They'll tell me if they go to a friend's house that they've never been before, they'll come home and they'll say, oh, yeah, they had a really nice house, but the kitchen needs to be remodeled. But I would place the value like around $500,000 or maybe $1 million, depending. And I'm like, what? It's really funny.
To know those sort of things, to pay attention to those things, that's how you can tell that you have another generation ready to get in when it's time.
They both say they do not want to get into real estate. And
No.
I'm okay with that. If that's not where they want to be, I mean, we work so hard so they can do whatever they're meant to do.
Yeah. And how many years have you been doing it now? This is
16 years.
Yeah, 16 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Probably went by very quickly those past 16 years.
Long and short, all
Yeah.
wrapped into one.
People wanted to look you guys up online, Strait Realty. Where can they go?
StraightRealty.com or whypaymore.com.
This process, why pay more than for? And it's such a big part of what you do. Can you explain that process, how that works?
Sure.
Yeah, and how it's different than how it would normally be done.
So with the 4%, first of all, commission is not regulated by any entity. It is purely market driven. So any agent, I should say, could charge nothing to list a property, but that's not really, profitable. So if a competing realtor charges you 6%, they have to pay a buyer's agent a percentage out of that commission. So for instance, in our area, the average is 2.7. So if they're charging the seller 6%, and they charge 2.7 to the buyer's agent, then they keep 3.3%. When we list properties for 4%, we still pay the 2.7% and we keep 1.3. That's our margin. That's our commission. The reason we can do that is because we don't have to pay any money back to an entity like a name or a royalty or anything like that. And our systems and processes are so smooth. Dan was talking about technology earlier. We really have capitalized on that and making technology work for us. So we are not spending a ton of time doing mundane things. Our time is better used and served by attending to our client. In order to list a property on the MLS, you have to be a licensed realtor. So if you're a seller and you want to list your house, you have to call a realtor. So you'll call us and we'll list your property.
It's very competitive.
It is.
How do you guys stay up on that? Because it seems like when things move so quickly, it's like when everything goes bang, 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 it's like hard to keep up on that.
Well, that's where technology comes in. Most of the time, and this is with all realtors, not just us, most of the time, if we have a buyer looking in a certain area, that buyer is in a portal that's sending them properties that meet their criteria. And that buyer will call or text their agent immediately when they get notification that that property comes on the market. And they'll say, oh my gosh, did you see this house on 123 Elm? It just came in the market. I got to see it. And so the agent is the person that tours the property with them and writes the contract and helps them through that process. But in terms of finding properties, it's usually the buyers that are really aggressively looking. No longer are the days where, you meet with a buyer and you say, oh, here's 10 potential properties. Those agents or those clients already know the properties that they want to see. They've done their homework. It is an HGTV world, Zillow-driven, Realtor.com driven world, and you got to stay on top of it.
Obsessive. You got to be, because when you're looking for a home, you become obsessed about it. You're looking. All your free time is looking at homes. You
are, and some of your work time. I've known clients that skipped out on work because they're so obsessed to find that home, and they'll just drive around and,
We've had houses where they've had 10 contracts on it.
Wow.
So then, somebody will go 10,000 over, and then somebody will remove the financial contingency, and then somebody will remove the inspection notice. I mean, it just, when it's an area that's super hot, it gets really aggressive, and we love it.
Which right now is almost all areas. We had one property that we represented the seller. We had so many agents going into that house that the neighbors called the cops because there were too many cars on the street.
Wow.
We love that.
We continue one more time with Strait Realty, Christina and Bob Strait, along with Dan Bean from CMA Consulting, who tells this weekend's family business story on the business of family business, presented by CMA Consulting. I'm your host, Ryan Recker. As you know, family businesses have to make a decision at some point. What's going to happen? Will there be a transition to the next generation? Will it be a sale? Will it be, I think we're just going to call it quits? What's going to happen next? Whatever that planning process may be, and a lot of times, if there is a family business owner in a generation, They may have another generation in the wings. They may have someone they've been training. They may have someone in mind that they feel would be good for that position. So how do you transition them to be effective business owners? That's where CMA Consulting can help, cmaconsult.com. They lead a multidisciplinary team to help family businesses unify that next generation with experts in tax and accounting and legal and banking and risk management. What they do is really make sure you have the best chance of a successful transition there between the generations. And the nice thing is, if you have a question, all you got to do is call them. CMA has a complimentary, no-obligation meeting to discuss your family business. It'll probably feel good to sit down and actually talk to someone that knows a thing or two about family business. Let them know about some of the troubles you've had, some of the issues you've been coming up against, and they'll let you know how they can help. It's simple as that. Since it's complimentary, it's easy for you to give them a call and just vent to them and see what they say. And you can ask that very important question, hey, what can you do to help my family business? CMAconsult.com. The phone number, 314-721-1860, 314-721-1860. I hope you're enjoying this program, The Business of Family Business, looking at the story of Strait Realty, really the American dream there, with Bob and Christina Strait. If you would like to listen back, maybe you missed part of it, just go to the podcast section at KMOX.com, and you can find this episode on there. Better yet, if you know a family business that deserves to be on this program, reach out to Dan Bean. He's also in studio with us today at CMA Consulting, cmaconsult.com. I'm wondering about some of these websites. You mentioned the Zillows, and there's certain websites that people go to check these things out. Is there pros and cons to websites like that?
Oh, yeah. Zillow, any agent will tell you that they hate Zillow and love Zillow all at the same time. Zillow is a marketing master. They market to every buyer and seller. Where we hate it is that sellers will tell us, oh, well, my Zestimate or Zillow told me that my value of my home is blank. Well, I mean, if you go on their website, Zillow will say they are not an appraisal company and they don't really know. They're just basically accumulating data and telling you what they think it might be. That's kind of a good starting off point, but it could be way off, and it has been way off. So as a seller, use caution. As a buyer, we like it for our buyers. A lot of clients look at properties on Zillow, and then they text us and they say, hey, this property just came up on Zillow. And so you kind of have to work with it.
Yeah.
So if you want a way to figure out what your house is worth, put a dot right in the middle of it, quarter-mile circle all the way around it, sales for the last year. Yep. That's the best way to come up with the value of the house.
Without an agent, you're talking about.
Without an agent, yeah. And, ranch to ranch, two-story to two-story. But that's how you start the process on what your house is worth. So Zillow has all this old information, too. Mm-hmm. So, they could have had a house that was listed way over. They're using that in their price. So that's the basic way to come up with a price.
Yeah. So what happens when you guys are off the clock? Are you still talking business, or is it 24/7 with you two?
You mean when we're on a date and
or
stuff?
Anything,
or
yeah.
anything?
So does it come up?
All the time. And sometimes I have to say, babe, I cannot do work right now. I have just got to not, okay? But then inevitably, 10 minutes later, we're talking about work. We just can't stop it. And whenever we go on vacation, too, we travel a lot. That's how we can kind of take a break. We're thinking about those homes. I constantly am thinking, if I go to California, how can these people afford these homes? What do they do? If we travel international, I'm always very curious about that market. And in fact, one time when I went to, was it Charleston?
Christina has an app. So she looks at all the prices.
I was looking at these beautiful homes, and this lady saw me looking at her home, and I explained who I was, and she says, well, why don't you come in and I'll show you my house? I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love it. So I can never, ever get away from it.
Oh, I know how that goes. My wife and I will be driving around. If she sees a home she likes, the first thing she does, pulls out her phone, looks up the address, and finds out anything she can about the house. People are like that, Dan Bean from CMA Consulting, we've talked about this with other family businesses, how they manage their time outside of the business, when they go, and every family, they kind of have a different way of handling it, but it always sounds like it's nearly impossible to, leave work at work anymore.
Yes, work has become almost a 24/7 process with the connectivity that's there with current technology. And every family business finds a way to manage that, and they draw the line at different points in the sand. Some, when they leave the office, that's it. Once they get home, There's no more talking about the business. Others, it's a lot more fluid. So it's whatever works for that family is what's right. There isn't an absolute right and wrong. But there does need to be, a lot of families have a catchphrase. And Christina is, when I've had enough, I just say I've had enough. I can't do any more right now. Sometimes that's turned into a catchphrase. And it may be something like green bananas or red apples. Who knows what it is? But it means, okay, we got to change the topic.
Yeah. Well, at Strait Realty, how do you guys project your future? Do you try to project growth? Because it seems like you've had a lot of it over the years.
We do project growth based on our marketing, based on our old clients that we know are going to resell and buy and refer. We're very optimistic. We know that in any market, a down market or a good market, we have a place. The 4% speaks loud to sellers, especially in a down market if the equity that they have accrued in their home is less. And in a hot market like now, basically, why would you pay more than 4 to stick a sign in the yard and get 10 competing bids? I mean, we're doing the exact same thing that anybody else is doing for a higher rate. We have a good future.
Yeah, we're trying to always evolve, though. Never just rely on the 4%. So social media, figuring that out, getting the right people behind us.
Right before we went on, you're kind of joking, about the control factor, and having your hands in the business. Because, I mean, this is the Strait Realty. It's your guys' family business. Is it weird to relinquish some of that control?
No, I think I'm a really great delegator. I'm able to delegate. I've already delegated some to some of our other people that work for us, and I can delegate things to Bob and know it's there. I am a macro person. I'm not micro. I hate the small little minutia details, and I don't want to do it, so I'd rather have anybody else do it.
Yeah.
And I really have been enjoying doing the properties that are different. So I've been going to Troy and Cedar Hill and Potosi, doing the farms. I mean, I love O'Fallon, don't get me wrong, but I love, the 50-acre piece of property. Something different, it's exciting to do.
Yeah. At Strait Realty, when you guys were coming into the studio here today, Bob, you mentioned that, last time I was here, we're doing a coat drive. You're on with Charlie and things. So you could tell me about some of the things you do for the community.
So it happened a year ago, Christmas. I was having a cigar with a buddy of mine, and that polar vortex, I don't know if you guys remember when that came through. And I turned to him and I said, I should do something to help the homeless because we don't have many polar vortex in St. Louis. So he's like, do it. So I called Christina and got permission to, use Strait Realty's name. And then I called Carrollton Bank and said, hey, I know it's last minute, but I want to do a coat drive. And then we did, I think, pull it off in a week. We collected about 1,000 coats.
Great.
And so I was like, well, let's just keep this going again. I know Kurt Warner may or may not be doing it. So I saw a need. So this year we did it again, and we got Carrollton Bank, we got Central Bank, and we got Great Southern. And so we had 42 drop-off locations. So I think we did almost 3,000 coats this year.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, so it's great. I mean, the people that you meet. And I got to go to a church in North City, and the lady said, hey, come over here, and you're going to see a young person get a coat. So a 6-year-old, I mean, it broke my heart, because he didn't have a coat, and it was cold out. So them are the things that really make a difference.
But that's Bob, though. I mean, Bob he's so generous. He's a big teddy bear. It's not that I'm not, but that's just not really my heart. My heart is business, and I love it. And Bob, if he could do that every day, all day, he would. He loves it. He's so good at it. Big old teddy bear.
Aw, look at that. I'm wondering about St. Louis as a market. Is there any unique features in homes that are just to this region?
Well, obviously, you have the Kingsburys and the Westminsters across the way from Forest Park. I mean, the beautiful homes over there, 10,000 square feet or more. They're exquisite and beautiful. You don't really see those
We sold
anywhere.
one. Tell them about it. Was built in 1904.
Yeah, I believe it was 1903 or 1904, and it was a complete concrete home. And the builder was forward-thinking, and he knew that automobiles were going to be the thing of the future. So instead of building a carriage house, he built a tuck under two tandem garage underneath, and it was so forward thinking. And it's the only one on that street that has an attached garage. So
and it
cool.
also had a book about everyone who ever lived in that property.
Oh,
so they had
wow.
this. It was just an incredible story, and it was an executive here in town, and Christina sold the property. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and you have a lot of homes that are unique because we have our two rivers, and you have all the bluffs, and you have some homes overlooking the bluffs, and that's beautiful. You don't have that a lot in the country. And then, of course, Forest Park is a gem. It's amazing. So there's a lot of really great things. A lot of stone and brickwork, too.
A lot of brickwork. What are some of the up-and-coming neighborhoods in St. Louis?
Oh, my goodness.
There's so many of them?
There are. Tower Grove is a really great area in the city of St. Louis. And then, of course, if you go out west, Wentzville is exploding right now. They've had to build another high school, and they're rezoning.
Troy and Winfield are doing well. I mean, people are moving out again. I think.
Yeah, Washington and Union out that way, Pacific, all of that is doing great. So Jefferson County.
But the hottest area, would you agree with me that if O'Fallon Ranch is on the market and looks nice, it's
oh my goodness, that
sold.
or there's some great spots in Clayton too. South County, oh my gosh, Lindbergh School District. You cannot keep anything on the market there.
Oh.
It's crazy. There's a lot of great pockets. Kirkwood, another one. Webster Groves, Glendale, all of that is really great.
So your website, straightrealty.com, people can go to and check it out on there. Is there a phone number or other places they can reach out to you, maybe social media?
Yeah, 314-441-4444. And then, of course, whypaymore-than-4.com.
Did you guys grow up in St. Louis?
So interesting. I was born in North St. Louis on North Market and Hogan. My brothers went to Catholic school there. It's now a juvenile facility. But at 1 year old, people were leaving North City in 1969. We moved out to Union, Missouri, and lost my mom at a young age, and grew up out there, extremely, extremely poor. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, type thing. And then I moved back to St. Louis when I was 21.
Wow, Christina, where did you grow up?
Well, interestingly, my dad was in the Air Force, and I was born in Misawa, Japan, on an Air Force base.
How about that?
And then he came back to Missouri because he's from Missouri, down south, and he became a minister, and we moved my whole life. And maybe that contributes to my love of homes, but always small, rural country towns, which I have nothing against them. But when I was 16 years old, I swore that I would never live in a rural town. I was going to make it to the big city, and the big city at that time was St. Louis.
Yeah.
So I came here and went to college. And
So where did you guys officially meet?
You can tell the story.
you can. Go ahead.
So I had a roommate named Tom who went to, we were a little older. So I'm 8 years older than Christina. So he was going back to Missouri Baptist to get a degree. And so Christina called one night looking for Tom. They were buddies, and I answered the phone.
And the rest
And
was
you
history.
answered the phone.
Answered the phone, and we talked for that night for, like 6 hours. And the next day, 10. And then the next day, he asked me on a blind date. And
And then she went to Israel. We kind of broke up a little bit. She went to Israel to do a mission trip. I went to Romania. And then when she came back, we got back together. And
he was waiting.
Look at you two now. Look at you two. Dan Bean from CMA Consulting. We heard the story today of Strait Realty, and you hear the teamwork and you hear everything that goes into it. I'm curious your impressions of today's story.
It's a great American dream story. I got two determined and motivated individuals who came from humble beginnings, got an education, and with hard work, grit, innovation, and determination, they've built a successful and rapidly growing business. Looks like the next generation has a good entrepreneurial streak, and that bodes well for the future. It does look like they will be able to do better for their children than their parents did for them, and that's another part of the American dream.
Christina and Bob Strait, Strait Realty, straightrealty.com. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story on the business of family business.
Thank you.
thank you.